Okay, wait. Now we're live. Now we're live. All right. So we're using a new service, my friends, and we're just still trying to figure this out. So I'm going to redo our introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jake Sussman Live. Happy Monday. For wherever you're watching from, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jake Sussman. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a dyslexic and ADHD changemaker, an entrepreneur, and founder of Superpower Consulting, a global mentorship firm designed to help kids who are neurodiverse find their voice and learn how to self-advocate. Now, since quarantine started, I have been interviewing many different people, from parents to industry leaders to neuroscientists to doctors and to attorneys. Now, Piper Paul has been on this show many times. She is a good friend and mentor for me, but also she is one of the most renowned education rights attorneys in the country. And let me tell you something. I know right now a lot of kids are struggling. A lot of you parents are wondering, is this school taking advantage of my kids? What questions should I be asking? What should I know? Okay. Piper is an expert in this. All right. I always get these questions, do you feel that the school is taking advantage of your kids? This is the perfect session to get to know Piper and to know if your kids, are they getting their rights met? All right. Now, Piper, welcome to the show. This is probably the fourth time I've had you on. If you are watching, just really quick reminder, please comment where you're watching from. That's super important for building our own community. And for Piper to know a little bit so she can better assist you and help you. Again, this is an amazing opportunity for you to ask an expert in the legal space for your kids to make sure that they're getting their rights met. Whew. All right, Piper, we're back.
Thank you. Well, I have to qualify a little. We cannot call ourselves experts. I've had a lot of experience in this area. This is a
Oh,
primary area that I practice. And I also can't provide legal advice. I can give general information and knowledge, but I really look forward to hearing from your community and hearing what they're saying and information that I can provide to try to help empower the students and the families.
right, right. And that, honestly, at the end of the day, this is why we're here. We're here so that, providing the proper resources for our parents that may not otherwise get access, or may even know what questions to ask, you know. So Piper, tell me a little bit about, it's been a pretty rough 2 years. Tell me about what you've seen so far with schools and with kids with disabilities. What's that been like in the legal space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually been crushing for all parties involved. Um, the impact of COVID and virtual schooling really highlighted the nature of disabilities that parents and legal guardians were completely unaware existed. That sort of started to create a fracture that's already more into a fractured system because parents started getting really upset and really frustrated and really, really worried. And then what happened was school districts and everybody was overwhelmed as well. And the system came to a kind of stop. And kids haven't gotten what they needed. Kids have suffered. And the impact, I think, on our culture, on our country, is that it's had a really hard impact. And people are more reactive on all sides, and it's harder to have conversations. And we have a lot of work to do to really start really talking and figuring out how we make up for that lost time, or
Right.
even maybe how to get a student identified that you didn't even know your child had these problems.
Right, right. Growing up, I have always felt in school that, I was misunderstood often. And the school was just obsessed with my behavior versus looking beyond the surface as to what was actually going on. Now, I don't know about you parents, but if your kids are like this, let me know. Because that was my experience growing up in school. Now, do you find that, schools or, often schools look at just the behavior and not the full
100%.
disability? And if so, what are
Always.
some ways that we can navigate that? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's sort of and I'm not making excuses for schools. My sister's a teacher and an administrator. I think they're overwhelmed, and I think that many people in the trenches want to do the best they can, but they can't. And Jake, I just lost my train of thought there. I think I have a little ADHD here. I forgot what was going on.
Do you want me to read?
Yeah.
So, okay. So the question is, have you felt, so we're talking about behavior, right? We're talking about behavior versus actual what's really going on. And I know a lot of kids that we work with in our programs, they're frustrated because we're seeing a reaction of a child being misunderstood.
Yes.
And what's really going on in the class, like for me, I was thrown out of class in third grade all the time during independent reading time. But the school was obsessed with my behavior versus realizing I'm just an auditory learner, and that's why I was misbehaving.
Yes, I deal with this on a daily basis. There's an assumption that oftentimes that children can be molded and kind of taught, but that it's like Band-Aids. They never oftentimes figure out what is the cause. And in my personal opinion, I often feel that feels very personal in nature. It's an assumption that a child is bad, or that a child wants to get in trouble, or that a child can't do their work. And it's an intentional act, and it's not. And then what happens when parents start advocating, then they can start questioning what's going on in the home.
Right.
And they miss the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. And for our parents that are just joining in now, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Comment below. Again, guaranteed there's someone else having the same exact question as you, so it's okay. Feel free to just ask away, and that's what we're all about here. Okay, so we are kind of all in this together. So Piper, tell me a little bit about why are you an attorney? Like why? Why education? Why not tax or speeding tickets?
I've done a little of both, but no, it started when I was a kid in playing Monopoly, and everybody thought I was so doggone annoying because I felt that I had to know and follow rules. And I like to have discussions about this. And I always had to say why. So I was told early that, yeah, I should be a lawyer. But I wasn't. I was a dancer. And then I was into psychology. But this path, I went to NYU, was a dancer and double major in psychology. I got into doctoral programs, and I really got fascinated with the neuropsychological aspects of the brain and mind. I did research for a year, but then I realized that wasn't really going to get me where I wanted. And then I applied to law school. So I went to law school, was a prosecutor, where I learned to litigate. I used to be in homicide. And it's with that compilation, that background, creative with dance, psychology, and sort of some understanding, that element because of the psychology involved in all the reports and evals. And then in conjunction with civil rights. I'm a civil rights attorney. I'm from a small town in the Midwest. I'm the first girl to go to college. Well, I've not been in many people's shoes here.
Wait, you're the first? Say that one more time.
In my family, I'm the first female in my family to go to college, let alone law school. So I grew up in a really small town where you really didn't have a voice. So it's a combination of all those things that led me to education law, and it's a perfect area. And the way I practice law is I incorporate all the things that I've learned throughout life.
Right. I mean, that really, it takes an incredible amount of empathy to be able to work with children and making sure that they're getting all of their voices met, and passion, right? And understanding, because there's so much emotion in this work, right?
Yes.
What kind of advice would you give parents on dealing with the emotional side of this? Like, because it's so easy to go nuclear and want to just like rip the school apart, right? But is
100%.
that the best tactic?
That will never work. That will never work. So I always I always like to think that we try to be like many steps ahead of this, of whomever we're trying to resolve something. Parents, we come to the ideas of what's needed, and then you have to have a different approach. And it's a detective approach. So if you have a goal in mind and you're getting shut down, you try to gather information, and then I work with my clients to understand the law and how those pieces fit together. And information is power. So they
Right.
do collection of facts, I do combination of law, and we work together as a team. I'm very
Wow.
much into a team, and the student comes in if they want to speak. And because at this point, often, by the time people get to a lawyer, things have not been going well. And there is trauma, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's hurtful. And I'm meeting people for the first time. Why would they trust me if they think that the system's let them down? Yeah, but if I didn't if I didn't have the experience and hadn't been doing this for so long and seeing results, I wouldn't be able to continue this. When I start speaking to clients, it is heart-wrenching
Right.
because there's a child at the end of this.
Well, that's about building trust, right? That's
Building.
that's the first step in mentoring, right? In our mentoring program, we're not coming from the fixing approach. We're not coming in this from the, hey, there's something wrong with your child, they're broken, and now we have to fix them, right? That's not how it works. That's not what it's about. This is about building trust. I don't trust you and you don't trust me. It's the same
Yeah,
thing with your practice, same thing with our practice. And it should be the same that should be adopted in every practice, which is we can't, it's so easy, especially in this world, to be obsessed with the problem at hand. There's something wrong with my child
yeah,
is struggling. We have to fix that struggle.
yeah.
But that actually could be the struggle in and of itself. It manifests. I
Right.
believe that if we can look at a kid's unique strengths, if we can look at what makes them unique first, hey, perhaps that's where we could begin, because that's where the relationship starts. And I've seen that's how you work too, you know?
Thanks. Yeah, no, the relationships are key, and it's building relationships with the clients but listening, really listening. And then what I try to do is build relationships with school districts. Not that as far as uh, relationships, and that I'm not going to come in there and start screaming and yelling and pointing out all the errors and all the mistakes and challenging people, because people are going to shut down that way.
Right,
So I
right.
do have a different approach.
We had a comment here. I'm actually going to put it up on the screen here. So Edith said something very interesting. Edith said, unfortunately, the school system doesn't recognize the emotional trauma when having difficulty with reading and writing.
It's true.
How can a parent navigate this?
So you always need you may need an outside evaluator that understands the complexity of this, that understands difficulty in language-based learning disabilities, in conjunction with the impact that had on a child, mental health, if that in fact occurred, and it has to be documented. And only with that information can you go forward. You have to ask, under IDEA, the main law, you don't get money for like emotional trauma. If there was trauma from it, there that can be additional maybe services, possibly, it depends. Um, if it's really egregious, um, you can go to court under a 504 ADA violation, and you can get damages there. But these things are really hard to prove. You're going to have experts.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was really helpful, because I do think that it's really tricky. You know, it's really, really tricky. When do you think that it's a right time to go to an attorney, to go see someone that's professional? Like when, because it's expensive, you know. So I mean, obviously it's case by case, but is there like a general time of when we're like, you know what, it's time?
It's probably too late if that's what you. It's probably a little too late. I think that what
Oh,
you would
really?
do is if you're getting that gut instinct, but you also need to do your homework on attorneys, right? What kind of attorney, and ask for consultations with attorneys and speak to them, see if they have the same style as you, if they want to approach it the way that you do, uh, and find out in your community who some of the attorneys are that have worked and can work to get things resolved. Um, that's what I would recommend. Um, I would recommend making some phone calls and see if you can get a consult at no charge and starting to learn your rights, our rights, so you don't feel so overwhelmed. And you can do that by looking online, like rightslaw.com,
What's it
W-R,
called? How do you spell that? Yeah.
rightslaw, WRIGHTS law.com. It's one of the top resources out there.
There we
Yeah,
go. I love these things.
www. Yeah, and you
These
can
days.
go there and learn so many wonderful things. But this is another language.
Yeah.
Jake, that's very
I
impressive.
love it. I mean, this thing is so cool. I mean, I'm having a
Yeah.
blast. I'm sorry. I love these little gadgets. I'm sorry, guys. This is our first time using this. This is gonna be fun. This is the next level of Jake Sussman life. I'm just letting you know. Get ready 2022 because we're coming in hot. We're coming in hot. Anyway, it's so great. I feel like I'm in the news station, you know. I'm gonna be like breaking news, you know, like, and it's like hopefully it's not, we don't put any bad things in the columns. It's all gonna be good, positive things
Positive.
because there's too much
Yeah,
negativity.
positive. Positivity and hitting reset buttons and utilizing the law and not going
It's
after
great.
the jugular. That
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
work.
I'm having a blast. You know, look, at the end of the day, life is there's too much bad out there. There's too much just negativity, right? If we could just fill our world and our days with a little bit of positivity, with a little bit of
Yes.
love, you know, like
Yes.
going up to a stranger and saying hi or smiling or talking to someone new, going to a comfort zone. I mean, come on, like these little things can help us so much in life. You know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and this is something huge that this is very interesting that it's segueing to this part of my questions to you, because I was going to save for this for later. But, um, you know, at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings.
Right.
Your teachers that don't like your kids or aren't reaching your kids are still human beings, although it's hard to believe sometimes. They're still human beings. Now,
Yes.
Piper, what are some tips for dealing with somebody who is ego driven, authority, teacher, principal, whatever, right? So like you know what I'm talking about, that profile of person that is just impossible, right? Because I know a lot of parents out there deal with this person that's impossible to reach. How could someone navigate the unreachable? Ooh, that's a question.
Yeah.
How can we navigate?
Yeah.
How can we communicate to the unreachable?
Right. So that's sometimes you try to put yourself in their shoes. Are their hands kind of being tied by administrators? Are they overwhelmed with their class? Do they not understand the nature of your child's disabilities? Um, so you try to have a conversation and ask what's going on and how you can be part of the solution and work together. And you try that. You try that multiple times. If that doesn't work, then you may have to go up the next level, but you will have done your homework and you document things. If it's in emails, but positive, not negative. Not like fake positive, but not like, what the heck is going on? Julie came home today. She's been crying all day. She said you were yelling at her. I wasn't yelling at you. So either the teacher's yelling at her, Julie's perceiving that she's being yelled at. And that's where your detective comes in. You've got to figure it out. You talk to the bus driver, you talk to the janitor, you talk to the Girl Scout leader. You start gathering your homework.
Right. And that's key, because that's control. That's you being in control. It's so easy to jump to the conclusion. But being the investigator, I mean, my parents would do that also. Like instead of going to and pointing the finger saying, why did you do that to my kid? My kid's crying every single day, or going to parent teacher conferences and ripping the teacher a new one, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not going to work. Why is anyone, it's negotiation 101. Why would anyone want to help you if all you're going to do is that you just point a finger at them and yell at them? They're not going to want to help you or for your kid. It actually will do it worse. It'll do more harm for your child if you go in nuclear on your teachers. I know it's so hard to keep it together. Right? But if we go in and being poised and confident and strong, especially if we can go mom and dad together. Okay, some parents may not be together, right? Some may be divorced. But if we can go in together as a unit, right, as one goal for our children, 2 is better than 1 for any day.
Unless they're fighting.
Or
disagree with one another.
Piper, that's why Piper's an attorney, because she brings it back down to reality.
Well, yeah, now it is trying to be a team and see if you can get anything moving and going. But you also have to do your homework so you know what your choices and options are. Yeah, no, people are so angry though, and they're scared and they're frightened, and they don't know what to do, and they could have been getting shut down a lot, and they're at home and their child is suffering, and the school may be reporting they see nothing wrong.
Right.
That's maddening.
I was given advice by somebody, blanking on who it was, but they said that when you're looking for a new school, call the local education rights attorney. Because if you see if they're busy, then that's not a good school district. Is that true or not?
Okay, so if you see the school,
like if I'm moving to a new school district,
right,
and I heard the school district has a great reputation, but I go and call the education rights attorney and they're really busy. Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
It's meaningless, because well, it means they could be a good attorney, but you have to be sure they're going to be able to have time for your case and have the expectations are set clear. But attorneys wouldn't practice just in one municipality generally. So, like, I practice all over Connecticut and New York. You wouldn't know. And also what can happen is the school district sort of turns on who the administrator is in place, and sometimes which law firms are connected to those administrators. And that can change. Even if a school district things were going smoothly, no issues, new administration comes in, everything can get turned upside down.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, listen, parents, if you have any questions, please. I know, Hallie, you were just commenting that, she was like, I really needed to hear this tonight. I got the text to pick up my child midday because he was upset. I'm telling you, I know it's really tough right now. I know there's a lot going on, and a lot of times it seems like the path is just never ending and there's no clarity in sight. It gets better, right? You have people like Piper, and there's people like Piper out there knows that there's faith in humanity. If we have someone like Piper out there, I feel good that Piper's out there. So Piper, tell me about as we're navigating into the next semester of school, what can parents do so that, like you said, that there's good resources out there, but are there anything on communication? Like should parents be learning about how to communicate better, are there resources out there to help? I know legal law is great, but what about communication?
I'm not aware of that, Jake, and that's brilliant. That is needed. So, how to effectively communicate, absolutely is really important. And what do you do when you start getting shut down? And because you always have to be at least 5 steps ahead, because you have an end goal to figure out what's going on to help your child. Sometimes you can't communicate. I've been in meetings before, and I have 3 letters and a dot after my name, ESQ. So people can get nervous because I can symbolize a great expense to districts, right? If we bring actions or go forward. But I've been in meetings when people still keep screaming at each other. And I've had to ask numerous times to please stop. And it was my client and the school district back and forth yelling at each other because they felt it became personal. And that's the key. If things start looking personal, you got to turn that ship around because you're going down the wrong path.
Yeah, big time, big time. I know that a lot of parents are starting to comment on this very thing about communication. And Anne actually said something very interesting. She said, being nice and patient does not always work either. Sometimes they believe they need to take any, sometimes they believe that they don't need to take any action. We have been waiting 4 months for them to act on a request for an IEP meeting.
That's not okay. I think that's time for a phone call to an attorney, right? And
And where are you from?
some advocates are good also. They can help with that. And interesting question. I don't know if patient is a word I would use. I think that you have to be. That's where you have to know what your rights are. I'm gonna agree. They can take advantage, right?
Yeah.
And but okay. Wait a minute. So that was the assumption I just said. Are they taking advantage? Are they overwhelmed? Did they miss what you said? And I'm not talking about this person specifically. So try to get into the other variables that have occurred. And at some point, that starts becoming a violation of the law. 4 months is pretty long. That's probably kind of out there. And
Yeah.
that's when you start learning about laws and rights
Right.
being violated.
Now you talked about an advocate. What is an advocate for our parents that may not know, that are new to this? What's the difference between an advocate and an attorney, and who sits on the IEP meetings? Like, what happens? Like, tell me, like, what's the difference?
I mean, that's a great question. And COPAA, Council of Parent and Parent Attorneys, has information on attorneys and advocates. Advocates cannot practice law, or it's unauthorized practice of law. But they can advocate. And attorneys, we can do both. Advocates could cost less. But anybody can be an advocate. You can just say you're an advocate. So you have to proceed with caution. Do your homework if you want to work with an advocate. Who are they? What's their style? What do they know? How long have they been doing it? And you have to do the same with attorneys. Attorneys will say they practice this area. How long? And talk to them and see. Yeah. And then you have to see what the fit is for your family and who you feel can really hear what you're saying. Guide you. And maybe that's not your style. Some people may want an attorney just to take over and do everything. If that's what they
What
wanted,
you're saying is it
then I would
depends
not
on the
be the
situation,
attorney.
right?
What's that? It depends on
It
yeah.
depends. I mean, look, knowing what you do, Piper, and knowing just being in this space, even though that money may be like a concern, don't hesitate to call, because there may be a serious case, right? A lot of parents don't know that. Like, because just like what Ann was saying, like, being patient and nice does not always work either, because the school could take advantage. Schools,
Yeah.
they know you don't know, right?
Mhm.
Or that's how they may behave. Not all of them, but that's how they may behave. So the more you know, the more that you're educated, the more that you contact me or Piper, but any questions that you have, the more that you can arm yourself with the right tools to then be able to be proactive and pick up the thing the school is trying, what they think they don't know,
Right. Yeah. So I can't ever give legal advice, but there's general laws that can be looked to and pointed in different directions, and um, yeah. So it's there's no brick walls. There's no brick walls. It feels like it's a brick wall, but there's ways around and through and over, and that's what you have to do. It's a lot of work, and you need a team. You need somebody else by your side because you are outnumbered.
Right, right. And that is the name of the game is developing a team for your child. I call it, it's like imagine your child is the captain of the ship and you need all of your shipmen and crew. That's what you have to imagine this as, because you can't drive a ship on its own, but you need all different people with all different backgrounds to be involved. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your kid. Everyone needs to have this mindset, regardless if you're neurodiverse or not. It's just the best way to go through life because it's working smarter, not harder. You got to have your people. You can't run a successful company on your own. Can't have, not possible, right? Even a family, there's gotta be teamwork. So that's why I think it's a good thing to become close with your local education attorney, right? Reach out to the advocates, call as much as you can. Don't assume, just call. Reach out to me, right? I'm here because I'm the older version of your kids. I've already been there. I already know what they're thinking, right? So make sure that you ask, reach out, ask the questions. This is key. This is everything.
One thing to be careful about that I see people do is they'll find their information or put a question out on social media and for different groups, and people answer, and often that is not correct information. It could be misguided. Not often, not often. Sometimes it's very it's not accurate and it's misguided. So you do have to be careful that you're really talking to a professional that knows this and not necessarily relying on the community.
Ooh, that's huge. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of mom Facebook groups, a lot of parent support Facebook groups. And every day there's at least 15 questions I see being asked, and everyone's giving 100 different answers, right? And that's something that, it's like if my friend is using Geico, I'm more likely to use Geico. It doesn't mean it's the best for me, although it can save me 15% more in car insurance. But you get what I'm saying, though? Like, yes, our community is great, but go to the experts. Go to those who are not, in this case, we can't call an attorney an expert, but those who are the most knowledgeable in this space.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, that's what you need to do. And find out where you can go to start learning and who can work with you and teach you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, don't hesitate to reach out. And this is why we're having this conversation. Piper and I are going to be hosting a free, she has a whole presentation. I don't know if Piper, if you want to show any specific slides to everybody now, but Piper has an entire presentation that she's going to put together for you. It's about, how long is it? Is it usually like your full presentation?
Probably like 30, 40 minutes, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. It's going to be about 30 or 40 minutes on Zoom. We're going to have a whole event. It's going to be on maybe a Sunday or Thursday night. Okay. You can even post what days work better for you, Sundays or Thursdays. But we're going to go on, and this is going to be a chance for you to be able to interact with Piper. You can be able to see she's got some unbelievable content that will help you be armed with all the resources, all the definitions, all the things that can help you, or as many of the things that can help you be successful with navigating this bizarre, confusing world of education, unfortunately. But that's why Piper's here.
Yeah. It would be my pleasure, Jake. And we have to build a community with one another and give everybody back their voices.
Yeah.
For me, it's interesting because I just get to help the clients or my area that retain me. And we need to really build a community of sharing information so that more people have voices.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, Piper operates, she does She practices law in the state of New York and Connecticut. So if you're from New York and Connecticut, definitely reach out to Piper. She's your person. And if you're not in Connecticut, she knows a lot of people. But
and if I'm not your person, I will give you names of other attorneys so that you can interview them and figure out what will work best for your child.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we're building a team. We're building your kids' team. That's what it is. We're building your kids' team, my friends. It's great. It's awesome. Now, Piper, is there anything that you'd like to share with our parents that can just in general be supportive for them as we start to navigate this world of helping and advocating for our kids?
Yeah, there's no brick walls. Feels like it, but there aren't. Follow your gut instinct. You're right. And then it's figuring out how to have that validated, figure out the information. Don't ever give up, ever. One day you're going to find that attorney or that advocate or that path, or that and you're going to get the tools. What this is like, you're told that you have to build a house, but sometimes you don't even know what kind of house. You may not have wood, you may not have bricks, you may not have hammers. So you're gathering tools. And with those tools, you can build your house.
And Piper, as you know, I love that analogy. I talk a lot about houses with having a foundation, and you can't build a house without a foundation. Yep. You just can't. It's not possible. You don't know what house is being built on top, but you have to dig deep to establish that. And that's what we're doing today, is we're building the foundation for our kids so that whatever house they want to build on top will take off no matter what. What. So. What do you say?
Who, me? I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So listen, we're going to hang out for a little bit longer, but if you do have any questions, please, again, don't hesitate to reach out and ask, okay? But I do want to know from Piper, what is your superpower? If you were to have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I would fly, for sure.
What?
I would fly. Pure freedom.
Why?
It just is something that seems to feel powerful, and I love the air. I love being in nature, the views. It seems limitless. I'm assuming there's no buildings or airplanes that I would be flying into, but yeah, I just have always wanted to fly. How about you? How about you, Jake?
I would say my ability to lift somebody up. I lift people up. Yeah. And with that, I would love, if it's okay, if you have a few more minutes, I wanted to share the Forgotten Child poem as a way to launch us into this week. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know the Forgotten Child poem, it's a poem that I wrote that actually inspired me to do this whole thing in the first place, to quit my job and to pursue this. And this really speaks for your kids and for all of us. Okay. So I kindly ask you to please shut your eyes so you can fully understand the story that has left me so traumatized. Imagine yourself as the child that always smiled. You were wild and beguiled until the day you were profiled. This is the story of the forgotten child. Now, what I am about to tell you will truly make your stomach churn, they said. I have major concern, Mr. and Mrs., but your child simply can't learn. The child was labeled disabled. He was told face to face that he should stop his chase to a higher educational place because he couldn't read any book in the bookcase. This is an absolute disgrace. Those words should never come out of anyone with a knowledge base. From that point on, he was taken out of the classroom all day long, from homeroom to 3 hours past eating the lunchroom. He became paranoid, full of anxiety and scared because he was told he was impaired. It felt like nobody cared. He was misunderstood. As a result of educators thinking he was no good, he just didn't want someone to think that he could. You see, negative labels are destructive, counterproductive, and obstructive. Now, I'd like to ask you to please open your eyes. To some surprise, that forgotten child is standing before all of you guys. He defied the lies of that public educational enterprise. You see, what they didn't know was that this forgotten child had an epic thirst for knowledge he refused to acknowledge. You will never go to college. He took those words and turned them from frustration to motivation. He was lacking that academic foundation, so his parents pulled him out of that cultivation that they called public education. Let me bring something to rouse. Just imagine your academic journey at the construction of a house. Without the proper support, that house will fall short, right? He was finally put in a place where his mind was no longer a disgrace. It was a place that built his academic base as strong as an iron case. They saw him for everything he got. This isn't no school of thought. It is something the public educational system simply did not. And it was the first time the forgotten child actually smiled since the day he was profiled. Now, let me mention one of the most notable individuals in all of mankind with the mind that was also defined like mine. Let's take someone like Albert Einstein, a man of credibility that had a learning disability. He was lacking much value, barely, despite educators' much accreditation, but that didn't stop Al's life journey to discovering the theory of relativity. So take a minute while I spit some poetry. What's the difference between you and every person the eye can see? Truth is, there's nothing, because each and every one of us have our own unique ability. Einstein said it perfectly, that everybody is a genius. But if we judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking that it is stupid. Don't you see? A wise man once told me that the power comes from the young people knowing that they could change the world. Don't ever give up your shot. Your mind is all you've got. It's time we change this public educational melting pot, turning your minds into a robot. You get my gist? In this world craving to coexist, it's time that we work with the kids that are missed, with those who fit the mainstream schools perfectly, and then those who learn differently. Together, I insist. Thank you guys so much. So that is the forgotten child. That is what we do for our kids. That is the kid that we fight for every single day, blood, sweat, and tears. That is why we do what we do. And that's our superpower. All right? All right. Well, listen, everyone, please make sure that you reach out to Piper Paul. All right? I'm going to post her website here. Boom. I love this thing. Okay. piperpaullaw.com. Make sure that you reach out to her, give her a call, ask her all the questions that you can. She's here for you. I'm here for you. And that's a wrap. Bye, everybody.